you know that I can see you?
Y'all should get clarity before you come to a board meeting and make rash decisions when they do the work for the entire month. We only come to the meeting once a month. Once a month, you make a big decision for somebody's livelihood, and that's not fair to them. So go ahead, Stanley.
Well, I have a few more comments based on that.
Okay, well,
Trustee,
let him, hold on, you out of floor, hold on.
No, well, this is the board, so
It is the board, it is the board. No, he's not going to, come on, trustee, stop. You don't have the floor, trustee, you don't have the floor. I was talking while he was talking, hold on.
Well, he could talk in a minute.
Let him
This
clear it up.
pertains to what we're talking about right now. First of all, you didn't answer Trustee Carlisle's question.
I did answer her question.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I
You
did.
went round and round.
I did not go round and round.
Second of all, maybe there was better planning. You're acting like
Trustee, you don't have the floor.
You're acting
now
like
you
this
see
is.
why residents act that way. When you ain't got the floor, you don't. You do know Robert Rules of Order, right?
Make a decision today.
If I don't give you the
These
floor,
are
you can't
things that should
speak.
have been discussed months ago. Just because you
Trustee,
you
don't have the
and then
floor.
you bring something before us.
Stand around, go
You
ahead.
should do better planning.
Trustee, you done had that package since Friday. You done had that package since Friday, so stop. Don't grandstand. You had it since Friday. We didn't have a meeting on Tuesday. We waited till Monday. Today is Thursday. And you didn't ask one question, Trustee. One question.
We're in June and we're talking about grass cutting.
So anyway,
Poor management. Poor management. And you know what? There's one common denominator between here and Dalton, and it's you.
That's the problem. You want to talk about that, it's not about Dalton.
And it's you.
All right, Trustee, you out of line. Go ahead. Stand around.
Boy, that was a fiery exchange, wasn't it? What if I told you that just like everybody else that Tiffany Henyard has problems with, they started out as friends. They started out as equals. They started out as peers. What if I told you that actually Mr. Gonzalez, whom she was having a shouting match with, is actually the reason why she's the Thornton Township supervisor in the first place? Shout out to the Lansing Journal. They've done an excellent job chronicling all of the hijinks and shenanigans that we know as the Thornton Township shenanigans and the Tiffany Henyard debacle, if you will. Let me bring this video in very quickly. We're going to give it all right, shout out to the Lansing Journal. So this is from March 2024. And the chief editor sat down with Chris Gonzalez to talk about how it is that Tiffany Henyard actually became the Thornton Township supervisor. You may or you may not know, Chris Gonzalez actually was the one that is responsible. Yeah, the guy that she was yelling back and forth with, the man that they were having that argument with, he's actually responsible for her being the township supervisor. And, you know what? I'm going to allow him to kind of explain it out, see what his rationale, what his thought process was. And if you don't mind, give him a little bit of grace, because keep in mind, we're looking at this in hindsight. The information that he knows now, he didn't necessarily know it then. So we want to give him a little bit of grace, because I think Chris Gonzalez had the right motives, even though I disagree with where he landed myself. I disagree with him. But I think he had the right intention. That's what I'm saying. He had the right intention. As my grandma would say, his heart was in the right place, so to speak. So let's bring it in. Let's talk about it. Shout out to the Lansing Journal. Let's go.
Good morning, Lansing Journal community. I'm Josh Bootsma, managing editor of the Lansing Journal. Our goal is to keep you informed and connected and to build community in the process. And today, we are keeping you informed about an ongoing story that our newspaper has been covering and that larger media has been covering, and that is the story of Thornton Township. And we are here today with a man who knows more than the average person about Thornton Township, Thornton Township trustee Chris Gonzalez. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We're excited to talk to you, to learn about the township. But before we do that, can you just introduce yourself to us? Tell us about you.
Chris Gonzalez. I'm a Thornton Township trustee. Been a trustee since 21, if I remember correctly, just going by memory. So not super long, first term as a trustee.
Yeah.
I was the assessor previous to that for 2 terms, not right before. There was about maybe, 10-year gap or so when I wasn't on the board or anything. So
you have lots of experience in Thornton Township, and you've seen even from the assessor side, from the trustee side, from the resident side, of course.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Many different angles. So you are very familiar with
Oh,
Thornton
definitely,
Township.
yeah. I actually started at Thornton Township back in 1990. I haven't worked there continuously, but I was a summer employee, probably, and then just ended up staying for about an 9-year stretch, from that summer employee to a part-time employee to a full-time employee. Then I went to work somewhere else for a while, probably about maybe somewhere around 9 years also, and then actually was asked to come back onto the board. That's when I came back on as the assessor. And then, like I said, there was a little gap back now as a trustee, but even when I wasn't working there or anything, I mean, I always made sure I volunteered. I was always involved, so there was always, so needless to say, I mean, I grew up my adult life in Thornton Township, so it's something that's definitely near and dear to my heart. Our passed away supervisor, unfortunately, Frank Zuccarelli, I always used to joke with him. I was actually there before he was.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was just for a couple of years, but I always used to tell him, I was here before you were.
Oh, that's funny.
And, but then, yeah, definitely.
There are few people who can make that claim.
Exactly,
yes. So, all right, getting into things a little bit here. We had a township meeting just on Tuesday, March 12th. And part of those meetings, you as trustees are voting to approve bills for various funds, usually 3 funds: the general fund, general assistance, and the road and bridge fund. Chris, you have consistently voted against approving bills for the general fund and the general assistance fund. And that's something that Supervisor Tiffany Henyard has critiqued you for in the public eye. Can you set the record straight? Why is it that you consistently vote against those approvals?
Yeah, definitely. For a couple of reasons. The main one, just the lack of information. As you said, you were at the meeting, just even using that last one as an example. I'm sitting there, and they pass out that packet. That was the first time I had ever seen what was in that packet till I was sitting there. Generally, traditionally, we would get the packet maybe at least a couple days beforehand. At one time, it would maybe Friday afternoon.
Sure.
And at one time, it was to the point where they would even hand deliver them just to make sure there was no confusion, and as in, you got this, this person delivered it. And of course, then more technology, so it was able to be emailed and things like that. But we would get it maybe at the latest, sometimes Monday. And we used to complain about it, or it was complained about sometimes here and there, just saying, hey, that's kind of late, but it was enough time. But even still, we kind of always liked that Fridays. But I'm just going by memory here, but I think in the general fund, there was like 311 line items. And then I can't remember how many were in the general assistance, but you can't really go through that, line by line and know everything that's in there. Over the course of whatever that is, maybe 5 minutes or so.
Sure.
It just can't happen. And then even beyond that, when you do, or when it's asked, well, maybe I have a question about this bill, whether it be through an email or something, you just don't get an answer, unfortunately. So those are the reasons that I have been voting no, and I've been voting no for quite some time. And like you said, I've been, said, hey, you're against seniors and you're against, and obviously you don't want the lights to be on. Obviously that's not the case. Yeah. It's just that you just can't make a good decision. I mean, and that's basically really one of our main jobs is, keeping tabs on the finances, knowing what's in there.
Right.
And like I said, you just can't, so, I mean, even I was asked by, one of the other TV channels, and they said, well, so what's going on? And I said, well, I mean, the information just isn't given. I mean, you can't vote. And she said, well, why are the other trustees voting, yes? And I said, well, obviously, you'd have to ask them. I said, but either one of two things is happening. Either they're getting the information and they're seeing it, voting yes, or they're not seeing it, just like, I am, and they're still voting yes. To me, either one's not right, because obviously, I mean, and once again, it's just my opinion, but I mean, there's things that need to be questioned in there. So to me, either one's not right, but I guess that's something that, they would have to be asked.
I think we've kind of implied it already, but for those who haven't been to Thornton Township meetings or maybe haven't read as much coverage about this, you tend to be, for lack of a better term, the odd man out sometimes. There's 3 other trustees, trustee board of 4. Supervisor Henyard is also votes on various motions and things. Your name has been excluded from township literature. Your name, as far as the Thornton Township website is concerned, you don't exist. So correct me if I'm wrong, but my interpretation is the Henyard administration seems to view you as an opponent. And I'm curious Why did that happen, and when did that start?
Well, first of all, the why. I mean, it's just the questioning. They just don't like that I'm asking questions. And once again, you've been at the meetings. I don't think I've ever asked anything that was out of bounds. As a matter of fact, I think I've went the other way and have tried to be super respectful and, just trying to keep a certain decorum. To me, I guess it just comes down to that just the plain fact that I've questioned things, and other than that, I really don't know. If there's any other reason, but that's the main one that I could think of.
And that's a unique role that you find yourself in then, as being usually the only person on the board who has any questions or is willing to make a critical remark or say, hey, I'm not sure that we should be doing this way. You end up being the only person who's making those kind of comments, which kind of puts you in a tough position because it all falls on you.
Yeah, because of that, I really can't, I don't want to say get anything done, but even when I question something, like you said, if there's a certain line item that say, hey, can we table this? Let's get some more information, and we could come back to it. Because you have to make a motion, you have to have a second for things like that.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't have a second. So I've gotten a lot of feedback from residents just saying thank you, and please just keep going. Don't stop asking questions. That helps so much.
So let's bring it back in time. We're talking about Tuesday's meeting. Let's bring it all the way back to the beginning of 2022. That is when former Supervisor Frank Zuccarelli passes away, and a void of power exists now at the top of Thornton Township. That results in a series of meetings among trustees, excuse me, where you are tasked with appointing a new supervisor, and if that doesn't happen by a certain time, that's going to go to a town hall where then the public is going to be appointing the new supervisor. So if I recall, some of those meetings were a little bit contentious among trustees as far as, I remember you suggesting a number of names that were not seconded or not voted through. Some other trustees were suggesting names that were not voted through. So it comes all the way down to 12 minutes before midnight on the legal deadline. This is in March of 2022 now. And it was you who 12 minutes before midnight said, I nominate Tiffany Henyard. And that was the first name that was actually voted for by the rest of the trustees. So then just a handful of minutes before midnight, Tiffany Henyard is sworn in as the supervisor of Thornton Township. Put us in Chris Gonzalez's mind, 12 minutes before midnight. What was your thinking in nominating her after this long process?
I mean, just as a whole, I just felt that I was hoping we could get somebody that was a little bit younger for the role. I felt it was time that maybe possibly, and I mean, I wasn't like honed in on that, but a woman. I just thought that would be somebody that was a little bit younger, a woman. So that's kind of where I was. I'll be honest, I really didn't know at that time a whole lot of the, that there was already some controversy and things like that, a little bit that was going on in Dalton, say. Sure. So I didn't really know about that. And that was also something that, I mean, obviously there, just on the surface, there was a little bit of experience there. She had been a trustee, just became mayor. Kind of a town that you might have had as a base as far as just like, once again, coming from that there might be some experience and things like that there. Yeah. She went straight to Frank's office and, sat in the chair and she just kept basically yelling, what are they going to think now? What are they going to say now? Speaking of the Dalton trustees, because I guess, like I said, there was already a rift and I didn't know that. So I'm thinking I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And then so I went to Keith on the side and I said, what is she talking about? I said, is the board against her in Dalton? And he said, yeah. And I said, who? He's like, everybody. And he was like proud of it. And at that time, I mean, I already was like, what did I do? Like you said, the other part was going to a town hall meeting. And, people have asked, and it wasn't the case that I didn't want the people to, speak their voice, but a town hall meeting is very different than having, a regular election. I think that if it was something where we would have had a regular election, it would have been kind of a whole different mindset. For me, once again, I'm just, speaking for myself. I just saw that, the way a town hall meeting would be set up, that there would just be so much chaos. And I just, unfortunately, had kind of saw that there, it would just possibly be like something that was going to be stuck in the courts and things like that for some time, just because of the way the process goes. It's really kind of an older process.
I see.
But like I said, if it was kind of like a normal general election, that would have, I think that would have been, much smoother and much better, where you're having, outside, say like the county, as they do other elections, running it and things like that. It's basically an old-fashioned, everybody for this person get on this side of the room, and everyone. So I mean, and then what if you had 8 people trying to, I just saw. So I mean, those were really the reasons that were in my head. Yeah.
A little over 2 years later now. How do you feel about that decision now?
It's funny though, just to jump in real quick, it's only been 2 years. Like all this chaos has literally been like the last 24 months. So let's see what he says. Let's go, Chris.
Do you have any regret about that decision?
I do, definitely. Obviously, with everything going on, just the financial things and just a host of others. I mean, I definitely do. Yeah. And once again, it's something that a lot of people have asked me. Hey, like just like you just said, hey, at this point in time, I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel it was, like you said, it was a regret or it was a mistake? And yeah, I definitely do. And I've even gone to the point where I've told people, hey, listen, I'm sorry.
Yeah, was your relationship close when things first
No,
started?
not really. No,
Okay.
actually, in all honesty, no. Like I said, we had spoke a few times, but really, no. I mean, nothing that I would consider close, by no means.
One of the items of, fast forwarding now again in time to current day, one of the items of recent controversy has been the referenda that are going to be on the ballot for the March 19 presidential primary election. Our viewers will be doing that in just a couple of days, going to the polls. 3 referenda are on the ballot for Thornton Township. The one that is most significant and generating the most headlines, shall we say, is regarding mental health. So a tax increase to fund mental health services at the township level. Local legislators have urged residents to vote against that. Many local mayors have urged residents to vote no on that. I'm curious what your understanding is of that referendum, and if you have any opinion. I know you can't speak on behalf of the township and tell people how to vote, but if you have any opinions or concerns regarding that referendum.
Sure. Well, as far as the referendum goes, this is the second time it's being tried.
That's right.
It failed the first time. But I think, a lot of people have been talking about the tax increase. And I'm a person, I mean, obviously I'm not for, generally a tax increase. I mean, sometimes, let's face it, it might be necessary or something like that.
Yeah.
But to the point, exactly, the township actually had in the past already a mental health program going that was actually basically dismantled.
Yeah.
There were a lot of tricks, or not tricks, but just things that weren't working for a little while, mainly because of COVID. I mean, obviously you just can't, you just weren't able to do a lot of those things for a little while. But then after coming out, it just wasn't really put back together, basically. So the township already had a mechanism for that. We were already doing it.
Yeah.
We could start it back up as soon as possible if there
Sure.
really was, if it was just a point of saying, hey, somebody saying, I feel this strongly about mental health, there's a need, then let's do it. I mean, the infrastructure's there, so, I mean, yeah, just do it. So, I mean, to me, that's the first point. Just like I said, then why do we need a referendum initially if everything's basically there?
Right.
That's kind of the first thing.
And there seems to be a record of, I remember it was one of the first board meetings where Supervisor Henyard had become a supervisor. One of the first firings was someone in the counseling
Correct,
department.
Exactly, yes, definitely.
So there's a track record there that exists of seemingly not making that a priority.
Exactly,
and now
correct.
to say that it is a priority seems maybe disingenuous.
Yeah, exactly, yes, no, definitely. And then like kind of the second point to that is, I feel we've had some issues already with transparency, with being open about the finances. So how could we realistically think about adding more to that?
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of where I'm at.
So in other words, even if you're on board with funding additional mental health services at the township
which
level,
is a serious thing, you know, obviously,
Right.
and you know, yeah.
you might not be 100% confident that the money raised for that is going to be going towards that
Correct.
purpose.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Especially last year when we were going through it, I said, okay, so, you know, so everything's out there. We got this referendum, you know, but where's the detail saying? All we saw was an estimate of what was going to come in, but okay, where's the breakdown? Or at least once again, an estimate. Obviously, you don't know exact numbers, but you know, we estimate that, you know, I mean, just once again, as an example, 80% of every dollar we bring in is going to go directly to helping people. That's what I want to see.
Sure.
And obviously, not only last year, but this year,
Sure.
nothing like that. You
So
know?
things
Real quick. Now, I notice here that Chris is bringing up something that you hear a lot of: transparency, fiscal responsibility, accountability, all those kind of things like that. And notice this is a trend. This has been going on forever now. Let her tell the story. Let Tiffany tell the story. You need to educate yourself. She's already giving you the information. But has she really? Let's go.
like a hiring plan.
Oh, exactly.
Just
Yep. We
basic
estimate,
things,
you know, we're
yeah.
going to at least start with this many employees.
Sure,
You know, we obviously might need a director or whatever.
Right.
We estimate that, you know, these are going to be, you know, our estimated what we think we might be, you know, pay them or things like that. Once again, you never know exactly until you really start putting, but you could have examples. I mean, that's, you know, you have to actually. How could you throw out saying, hey, we're going to bring in $3 million and just, you know, don't worry about it, we'll fill in the blanks later. I mean, it just doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, or shouldn't, you know, or shouldn't. So that's kind of where I'm at on that.
All right, so we mentioned that, talking about the kind of referendum that everyone is more concerned about, but there are 3 total. The other 2, one is regarding a second food pantry, and the other is charging $2 for a township soup and salad bar. So there are 3 total referenda, and the Illinois Election Code in Section 28 says that only 3 referenda may be put on the ballot by one public body. In other words, Thornton Township is at the max right now for referenda in an election.
Way. Notice everything that they're talking about is giving away something. Mental health, food pantry, soup kitchen, all that stuff. Again, now I'm not saying that there's not a need to help and support, but it just seems interesting that that's their whole shtick of Thornton, the whole shtick of Dalton is giving away stuff to people. Just seems weird and odd. Let's go.
I'm curious if you feel there is a significance to there being those 3, given that some of those other 2, opening a second food pantry, charging $2 for the soup and salad bar, don't seem like the usual, doesn't meet the usual standard for going to the public to consult for an issue like that. So I'm wondering if you think there's a significance to those 3.
No, I definitely do. I mean, I just feel that it was intended to crowd the ballot and not allow anything else to be put on that maybe might have been, you know, something seen as negative towards the administration.
I see.
Because and in that meeting when it was being voted on, you know, I had asked the question. I'm pretty sure you were at that one, but I had asked the question. I said, okay, we're talking about another food pantry and a soup kitchen, because the supervisor was saying how, you know, she's heard that there's such a need and things like that. And I said, well, the bottom line is if you feel there's a need and you would just finish saying, you know, that we have money, then let's just do it. I mean,
Sure.
That's the bottom line to me. And really the same thing had happened the year before. There was, I don't remember off the top of my head as far as what they were, but there was a couple things that were on the ballot that just, like you said, they just weren't normal
Don't
things.
rise to that
like,
level.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
you put it perfectly.
It leads us to think why there are 3, and so one possible
Correct.
explanation is crowding out any potential adverse.
Correct,
yeah.
yep. And if I understood it correctly, you could only put it on something on once a year, as you know, as far as being a specific referendum question. It's about the people. If there's a need, then we have the money. Once again, though, let's put it down. Let's say,
Right. Let's make the plan.
Yeah,
Let's see
so,
the plan.
You know, even for the referendum, there's no plan. And you know, as far as you know, those 2 questions, you know,
Opening a second pantry would be a
where, how much is it?
logistical.
Yep, how much is
yeah.
it going to cost?
Right.
Things of that nature. But there's, like I said, it's just thrown out there, and there's no backup.
All right, something else that you're talking about voting on the referendum questions. The end of last year, the board also voted on a salary ordinance that has been a topic discussed in the news media, shall we say. Can you just explain your understanding of that ordinance and what you believe the intended effect of it is?
Okay, yep. Not a lawyer, but my understanding of it is you could only change, so say even today, if we were having a meeting, you could only change, you can't change salary, say today. It's got to be for the next administration. It's just, so it was put out that, and I don't have all the numbers, but anyways, so say, and so I'll just use examples, so a new trustee gets elected, that person will get paid from there forward $5,000 a year. The supervisor, I think, was like $25,000 a year, and different numbers like that. Once again, I guess the question is, why? And for me, the obvious reason is you're just trying to deter people from running.
To be clear, the ordinance is something like $25,000 for a new supervisor, but if the incumbent maintains the position,
They get to keep
the current
or-
salary,
yeah.
which is
Henyard
north
would
of
get to keep.
200,000.
Correct.
So that's the real questionable part of it, right? Is
Correct,
that
yes.
So it'd be one thing to say, period, 25,000 for anyone after the next election, but to say apart from the incumbent implies that there's maybe that discouraging people from running
Correct,
against
yeah. That one kind of hits on so many levels. It was either that meeting that was voted on, or it might have been the one before that was just kind of the supervisor who was, I guess, basically just trying to get some information about it. And she had complained about the high salary. And I said, but that's your salary. If you feel it's too much, then why are you accepting it?
Sure.
Or even if you accept it, give half of it, to charity or back. Because that's you. You're getting that money now. And once again, I'm not maybe necessarily complaining, but you are. So and then to pass that ordinance, and like you said, to exclude herself, and to still get that money, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Another note of controversy that we've seen in the media recently has been regarding the supervisor's charitable foundation, the Tiffany Henyard Cares Foundation. The township in the past has supported and financially contributed to, in various ways, some cancer walks, at least some of which have been affiliated with the Tiffany Henyard Cares Foundation. Recently, the Illinois Attorney General has demanded paperwork from the foundation, and kind of in light of what's going on there, it seems that Supervisor Henyard has been trying to distance herself from the foundation that bears her name, kind of saying that my name is on it, but I wasn't involved in starting it or something like that. I seem to recall having been in some township meetings myself. That's a new angle for me, and I'm wondering if in your opinion, what's your recollection about what she has said about her involvement with the charitable foundation that bears her name?
Like you said, in the meeting, she said, I and we, when it comes to the charity.
Yeah, right.
Even ultimately, that just goes to, even if your name isn't on as the, whatever you want to call it, director or,
Sure.
It's still your name on the charity.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
we could start there. To say I have nothing to do with it. But then at the same time, not every, but a lot of people, I'm sure you've seen the footage of them going down to Springfield. It's
right.
Okay, you were there. So once again, to say, oh, hey, I've got nothing to do with it.
And it's one thing to have a charitable foundation that is, not submitting the correct paperwork or whatever, but it's another issue to have that exist and also have a publicly funded, a taxing body be contributing money to that foundation and really have no sense of exactly where the money is going.
Correct, exactly, yes. And that was one of the, going back, because that was quite a while ago with that, but that was probably, if I could remember correctly, kind of the instance where I really started saying, I can't vote yes on things.
Oh, okay.
Because that was one of those cases where it was, here you go, minutes before the meeting, and then, afterwards, I'm going through it, and I'm like, wait, $10,000, and that's really what it was like. Wait a second, you have to, you just can't, obviously just vote yes on something just because, or, whatever. No, it's just, you can't.
It's a potentially sensitive question here, Chris. Recently, some concerning reports from large media, and I'm going to read this because I scripted this out because it is sensitive.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Some large media, such as NBC5 and WGN, have shed light on an alleged incident during Supervisor Henyard's trip to Las Vegas. That trip itself, as you know, came under scrutiny for some extravagant spending that took place on the taxpayers' dime, including on township taxpayers' dime. But now a sexual misconduct allegation has come to light with a formal complaint filed with the Illinois Department of Human Rights. The complaint is from a former assistant to Mayor Henyard, and that assistant alleges that an unnamed Dalton trustee acted inappropriately toward her and that she woke up in the trustee's hotel room. She also claimed that she told Mayor Henyard about the incident and was told it would be handled. That employee also claims that after she told Mayor Henyard, she was then put on unpaid leave indefinitely. Obviously, it's still very early in this process. You and I know nothing more about that. No charges have been filed, much less proven. But if these allegations were to be proven true, what do you feel the supervisor's response should be, and what does that say about the supervisor and her leadership?
Correct. Basically, I really just know kind of what you know as well about these the allegations, and that's at this point, like you said, that's what they are, allegations. But like you said, I mean, as we go forward, and if they are, where like you said, charges are filed and things of that nature, I mean, it's just let's face it, we have a lot of problems, from my viewpoint at the township. But this is just something that's, just unacceptable. It just truly is. You're talking about, and yes, with people getting fired or things like that, say at the township. Maybe you're ruining somebody's life or their career. But like I said, to me, this is just something that's totally different. So it's just, like I said, it's just unacceptable. And I just, I had mentioned about, it just makes it difficult from my perspective, for that administration to go forward, just for a variety of reasons. Obviously, just the wrongness of, the allegations, but also just the being able to fulfill the daily duties and things like that. Whether at the township.
All right, so we're going to set that aside. Now, we've discussed a variety of different things, different concerns.
So just want to real quick point out this, of course, there's a lot of stuff that has happened since then, like the FBI raid, Lori Lightfoot understanding that there was some mixing of the funds of Dalton and Thornton for that trip to Las Vegas. And of course, like I said, the FBI raid. So there's been a lot of stuff that's happened since then. So this is just March of 2024.
Different questions that you've had. Let's say a resident, I've spoken to a lot of Thornton Township residents who are very concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions that they ask me is, what can I do?
Okay.
And I think that's a very good question.
Mm-hmm.
I have some of my answers to that question. I'm curious what you as a trustee have told residents, or what you would recommend residents, who they should talk to, what they should do, what can concerned people do?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank, media outlets like yourself and obviously others, just for shedding some light and giving those people somewhere to speak. Because that's really kind of what one of the problems is. It's like, people knowing kind of what's going on, so they could really try to find out for themselves if they, need to or want to. But I think overall, I've encouraged the citizens to come to the meetings, and even if they don't come to speak, just listen, come sit down, and and if they do want to ask questions of one of us afterwards, you would hope that they would get some answers, or at least saying, hey, let me take down your information. Let me find out. 'Cause our voters are great. They're educated. As far as what's going on, they're involved. So just like I said, if they have questions, come and ask them. If they have comments, come and give them. That's really, and then just obviously just kind of gather up information on your own and make your own decision. I've told people, listen, I said, hey, I'm sorry. I feel that I made a mistake as far as all, from the beginning.
Sure.
I said, but guess what? This is America, and people may want to look at the township as running it like a dictator or something, you know. But no, guess what? Your voice will come, you know. And I just, you know, so I mean, yeah, we you know, we'll have an opportunity. The people will have an opportunity to. That'll be the next biggest step, you know, for the people.
In talking with many different Thornton Township residents, one of the sentiments that I have heard from some people, and that was just reinforced this week by someone I met, is that not only do they feel that Thornton Township leadership is not doing right by the taxpayers, they believe that the township level of government is an unnecessary level of government. The woman I talked to this week used the phrase duplication of services. In other words, at the municipal level, the county level, at the state level, you have other services that are overlapping, and therefore the township level is unnecessary. I'm curious, you, as you explained, have been in the township world for a very long time. You're as good as anyone to ask. Why do you feel the township level is necessary, and if so, why?
I do. Obviously, I might be a little bit biased, but no, I definitely do. There's some services, obviously, that are, I mean, you know, duplicate may not be the exact word, but I think, you know, even going back, you know, almost when townships are even created, I mean, they were one of the first forms of government, but it was always, you know, bringing the certain services closer to the people, as close as possible. So there are things, say, like general assistance, the assessor's office. You know, can somebody go maybe to the state or to, you know, Cook County to get some of those services? I mean, yes, obviously they can. But I look at the perspectives of, you know, and right now it may not be the case, unfortunately, but, you know, from many years when I've been at the township, it was always that place where people said, you know, this is going on in my life, or, you know, my dad needs help, or, you know, my aunt needs help. And usually the first words out of whoever they were talking to, their mouth would say, hey, go to the township. They may not be able to help you, but they're going to send you, you know, they're either going to help you or they're going to send you where you need to go to get help. So I think it's kind of almost like a coverall in a way, you know, and then even on top of that, it's, you know, we have seniors. I mean, you know, my dad, he can't get around very much. So it might be hard for him to go to downtown Chicago. But it's a little bit easier for him maybe to go to the township and get some services done. Maybe some tweaks need to be made. I mean, you know, like I said, I'm an open person. I think we could look at stuff like that. But I mean, I still think it's viable. You know, even when you talk to some of the villages, I mean, they're kind of the same way. You know, where, you know, I've heard so many times when I've gotten calls from even Lansing, you know, some of the village officials that say, hey, I've got this person, they need some help, you know, whether it be with their property taxes or whatever. You know, can you help them? You know, if they need to make an appointment or whatever, you know, is it okay if they contact you or things like that? Even now as a trustee that happens, you know, some of them know I was the assessor before or something like that, or they say, hey, we got this family where, you know, their house caught on fire or something like that. They need just kind of some emergency help. You know, and they could get that from the township.
The next election that we've talked about is in 2025. Township election is in 2025, next year.
Here we go.
You've been involved with the township for a long time. Do you see your name anywhere on the township ballot come 2025?
I mean, right now, in all honesty, I really don't know. I haven't made any decisions, and that's 100% honest. Would I like to? Yes, oh, definitely. Sure. Like I said, I mean, the township's like home to me. You know, I felt that I had some explaining to do, basically, and I mean, obviously, a forum like this helps with that. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's something that, you know, you think about, obviously, and it's like, hey, you know, will the people, you know, what light are they gonna, you know, or how are they gonna look at me? So like
forgive you or not,
it's good to get, you know, to be open, and, you know, like I said, so kind of going forward, you get an idea. And like I said earlier, there's been a lot of people, you know, contacting me, whether it be through, like, you know, they might get my phone number for someone else, or, you know, like say through a Facebook or something like that, saying thank you, and, you know, if you need help for the next election, you know, let us know. And I mean, like I said, these are people I don't know even, you know, never met, or they might say, hey, I know, you know, Joe, whatever, you know, and he said to contact you because I had some questions, and, you know, kind of the same thing. They'll say, oh, hey, you know, if you need help, let us know. So, I mean, that's obviously extremely encouraging. The one thing, obviously, you know, the township's very big. It's huge. So it's hard for, say, one person to cover. I mean, traditionally, yeah, there's been people who ran as individuals, but just looking at things realistically, yeah, it takes a lot of money, and
Sure.
So
To get your name out there.
oh,
and,
definitely,
yeah,
and especially at this day and age where it's not so much of the old-fashioned, knocking on people's doors. I mean, mailings are expensive, and
Yeah.
even to do like say things like Facebook blast and things like that. That's it costs a lot of money. So it is hard for an individual to say, hey, I'm going to just run for whatever XYZ spot, and it's considerable. So those are the things you have to consider.
Yeah.
Is it just viable to be able to get it done? And I'm speaking kind of from my perspective. I'm not one to do something just to do it, just because I feel like I'm entitled or something. No, you look at something realistically. Do I have support for the people? Do I have the financial? Because even if I didn't run, I mean, as far as the township is concerned, I mean, I'm not going away. As far as either helping or helping someone else that wants to run or something like that. It's not like I'm just going to be like, okay, I'm taking my ball and going home, as they say. Absolutely not. So I mean, I will be involved in some way, as long as somebody will say accept that,
Sure.
or vice versa, or even if they didn't, if I felt something wasn't going on right, I'm going to be that person speaking my 3 minutes at the meeting. That's not going away.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, sometimes I think in my head, I think, I'd probably be better off signing in as a as a commenter. Hey, let me take off the trustee hat real quick and go over here and get my 3 minutes, uninterrupted. But anyways, yeah. So
That's hilarious.
I really haven't made a decision. Even if I didn't, I mean, for me, I still feel like I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I hope the people look at it, all encompassing,
Right.
that I just didn't fold and go with things that I didn't feel comfortable with.
Well, Chris, thank you for your service on the board. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for answering our questions. You've consistently been there after meetings for me to ask you questions, and I appreciate your honesty and your willingness to share your opinion and your experience as a trustee. Thank you, the members of the public, for reading the Lansing Journal stories, for reading stories from WGN and Fox 32 and NBC. Thank you for staying informed and connected. There are many reasons that we can pitch to you why staying informed and connected is important, and things happening in Thornton Township is certainly one of them. So please continue to stay informed. As Chris has said, hopefully we'll see you at a future Thornton Township Board meeting. Maybe the annual meeting would be a great time to come and see what's going on at the township for yourself. Thank you for watching today. Chris, thank you for the time today. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you, and we will see you next week.
All right, thank you.
All right, so shout out to the Lansing Journal. I thought that was a pretty good interview, man. Shout out. And I think Chris Gonzalez recognizes the errors that he made as it relates to recommending and nominating Tiffany Henyard. I want to bring up something to show you, man, just how slimy Tiffany Henyard is. So during that interview, the host talked about how Chris is not actually listed on the website. And let me move myself out of the way. Let's go down here. All right, Chris is not listed on the website. And I looked, and he's right. Like, you don't know that Chris Gonzalez. First of all, look at the main page and tell me what you see. Okay, we already see what's there is a bunch of Tiffany Henyard. A lot of people have brought this up, like literally Tiffany Henyard, senior, whatever. Like, of course, her name is at the top because she's a supervisor, but it's really hard to miss the fact that all of these programs have her on the flyer. A lot of people have brought this up. And it's pretty gross. But what I want you to see here is when you go under elected officials. Wait, I'm sorry. Elected officials right here under about. Click on elected officials. And you see, of course, Tiffany Henyard. And you see right here, just so you know, Jerry Jones, Darlene Gray Everett, Carmen Carlisle, Lolita Wells, and Gary Dupuy. Now, Gary Jones actually recently stepped down, so that's the role that they're looking to try to fill. So Gary Jones, Everett, Carlisle, but notice here, Carlisle doesn't have a picture. Isn't that wild? Carlisle doesn't have a picture, and she's one of the ones that is standing against Tiffany Henyard. But Wells, I've seen her there, Wells and then Dupuy, highway commissioner man. But Chris Gonzalez isn't even on the page. He's not even on the page. That is crazy. So I jumped over here under departments, and there's not a trustees department. You got all the events. These are all the events that are doing. These are all things that Tiffany, let's see what township talk. There you go. Another one. Got her picture on there. Like, yo, that is craziness. Like, what are you not putting your picture on? Everything is branded. Let's see, bingo. Bingo. There you go. Branded with her face. Everything is branded with her face. That is wild. All these events are Tiffany Henyard branded events. Let's look at photos real quick. I want to see if they have Taste of Thorton. I'm trying to see if they have anything with that could be the township trustees. I don't see anything in here that I could say would be the trustees. Let's see videos. Okay, there you go. Tiffany Henyard. Tiffany Henyard. Yo, this is crazy. Media coverage. Let's see what they got. There's nothing there for media coverage. So you can volunteer, community needs assessment. I just want to see, like, where is Chris? Chris is out of here. Wow, this is crazy. They done kick Chris all the way up out of here. That is wild. And we've heard this, like what she did with Kiana Belcher's picture. Like, she literally took her picture off of the wall in Dalton City Hall, and that's why Kiana Belcher had her picture on her desk when they were doing the board meetings. All that kind of stuff like that, all that kind of pettiness. And we see it right here in 4K. That's crazy. Because Chris is still currently a trustee. He should be on this list. That's wild. So everybody, let me know what you think about it. I really appreciate you rocking with me and going over this. Hopefully this debacle will simmer down so that cooler heads can prevail and services can be rendered and all that kind of good jazz. But let me know what you think down below. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace. Take care.
Hit that like for Devil Christian. Yo, for Devil Christian, smash that bell for DWC. Yo, smash it, just smash it. Hit that like for Devil Christian. For Devil Christian, smash that bell for DWC. Yo, smash it, just smash it. Hit that like for Devil Christian.